The Two and Out CFL podcast with Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones starts now.
And good afternoon, evening, morning, whenever you're listening to this show. That intro, I just watched it. It makes me look like I'm a cool guy. I promise you I'm not that cool. Sheldon Jones, we got to start the show with some housekeeping notes because I understand it's your anniversary today and you're still talking to this schmuck on the other side of the camera. So happy birthday, Sheldon Jones. Happy anniversary, Sheldon and Tammy Jones. Your birthday was back in, March. So, but happy anniversary, my friend.
Thank you. Yes, and happy anniversary to my beautiful wife who is letting me record. Yeah. I made a joke. I was like, I'll just tell Travis I can't do it today. It's okay. But
she's a fan of the show, so she would have to go without if you didn't do it.
That's right. She needs that listening the next day, and 14 years. It's been quite the journey.
She put up with you for 14 years, and this is your anniversary gift to her. Giving her another podcast to listen to in the morning.
That's right. Well, giving her an hour where I'm down here. She's up there.
Oh, okay.
I made a joke we work together because she's covering at my store a couple days a week because my normal cake person has gone back home to the Philippines, and we were working today, and one of the kids came to the back, and I was like, do you know what? She made quite the mistake 14 years ago today. The kid was laughing. It was pretty funny. It was nice. It's good.
You had Ryder. I wish I had some photos to put on the show. You had Ryder colored under white. Am I right here?
You are close.
It was black. It was black. Right?
I had black and green, and Tammy had white, and she had green in her dress as well. I can get Tammy to send you some photos if you want to throw some up. That works. But we had pretty. Green is our color. It wasn't necessarily Rider themed, but we had a groom and a bride carrying a football as their cake topper.
Oh, that's awesome.
We had game ticket, our invitation looked like game tickets for a Rider game, and we had custom made Campbell's soup cans and Jones soda bottles for our centerpieces.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
So I'm trying to think back. 14 years ago, 2011, the Riders were terrible.
Yeah, that was, Greg Marshall year? That was the worst. Yeah. Dark times in Rider Nation, but...
You jinxed it.
I guess so, but we didn't have to wait that long for it to come back around.
That's true. Week 9 of the CFL season is here. The BC Lions are on bye for this upcoming week, and the team that was on bye last week, the Ottawa RedBlacks, return to have a home game here. They're 3.5 point favorites over the Calgary Stampeders. That has been a big swing over the past few days because of one item of news, Sheldon. Dave Dickinson remained hopeful early in the week that Vernon Adams Jr. would be able to start for the Stamps against the RedBlacks. Well, he has been ruled out. It's going to be PJ Walker starting at quarterback for the Stamps in Ottawa.
Yeah, it's interesting. The hit didn't look that bad, and now just to see that there's some sort of lingering kind of symptoms there, which is not good. Obviously we want to see our stars playing in the league and our starting quarterbacks, so this isn't the best for getting fans into watching the game. However, PJ didn't look very good when he came in relief of VA there last game, but maybe having a week of practice, and maybe these Calgary Stampeder fans can finally get to see the kind of quarterback that they hoped they would have been able to see last year at the end there. But we'll have to see how it shakes out.
So PJ Walker was the passing yards leader and touchdowns leader in the XFL in 2020. He actually had an NFL record for the longest recorded air completion in the next gen stats era. So that's since 2016. He had a pass that was in the air for 67.6 yards. That is so clearly he's got a cannon on him. He did play with a few NFL teams. Let's just review this here. I think he played about 7 games with the Carolina Panthers. At least he relieved when Teddy Bridgewater got hurt, and anyway, he did play a few games with them. So that's a little bit about his history. He did come to Calgary last October. He did play in the preseason, and now he's starting against the Ottawa RedBlacks. I mean, at least Calgary's got some cushion in games here. We'll see how he does. Like, when you're hoping that your starting quarterback might be able to take some reps at practice, even if it's just 50-50, that makes it tough on the guy coming in, like if he doesn't get 100% of the reps, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's quite the gamble that they were playing there, I guess. You have to see if the guy can go. So I understand giving some practice reps there, but I'm not sure why you give first team reps right off the hop if you're still kind of questioning that. But we'll see what happens. But Calgary still do have a bunch of weapons, and they still have a really good defense. So we've seen games or teams that face adversity in a certain skill position, and then the rest of the team kind of rallies and they're able to win kind of in spite that sort of deficiency. So we'll see if Mills has a big game. I'm sure they're going to rely on him heavily, and then see if the defense can kind of force some turnovers and maybe even try to get some touchdowns, some defensive touchdowns to try to help that offense out.
That is the thing with the Stamps. They have forced the most turnovers in the CFL at this point of the season, 20 of them. However, the injuries are spilling over onto the defensive side of the ball as well. Last week, Adrian Green had an interception. However, on the play, he got hurt, and he wasn't able to come back into the game. And he's actually going to be a game time decision here. So I kind of we'll see what happens here. I'm kind of wondering if this one falls on the defensive line, and that D line between Orimolade, Clarence Hicks, they're able to make things happen, and they were making life difficult for the Montreal Alouettes at times last week. They're going to need to do that against Ottawa. And on a consistent basis if they want to leave the nation's capital with a win. Now, here's the stat. Calgary 3-0 on the road this season. Ottawa 0-3 at home. They have struggled at home in recent years. Last year was an improvement. So far this year, they haven't been able to get into the win column. This really feels like a good opportunity for them, though.
It does, and Drew Brown is back. They have listed him as a starter, and when he's been in there, I think Ottawa's been a different team. They've actually, been able to move the ball. He's had a couple 400-yard games. I think that, it's going to be a big test for him going against his Calgary defense, but when you're at home and when you're playing against a team that doesn't have their starting quarterback, these are the games that you need to win. And especially when you're, last in the division and looking up at missing the playoffs if you don't get your kind of crap in gear, so to speak. But the one kind of disadvantage they have is they're not going to have a lot of film on PJ Walker. So Calgary might be able to sneak some stuff in there that they might not be expecting.
The RedBlacks are welcoming back, it's like 7 or 8 starters to the roster. So they definitely used the bye to get healthy here. Peter Godber, the offensive line veteran, has not played yet this season. He's looking to make his season debut at center for the RedBlacks. Braylon Addison also back into the lineup, who has not played since week 4 with a bit of a shoulder issue going on there. And with him, he's just such a versatile player. Like, he'll take the carries from the backfield. He can catch the ball anywhere. He's a monster after the catch. Half of his yards come, after the catch with Braylon Addison. So to have him back into the lineup is definitely a big addition for the RedBlacks.
Absolutely. The only thing you got to kind of take into account is these guys are going to have to knock some rust off too. So we'll have to see if they're, going to be able to contribute right away, or if they're going to be a little slow and, kind of looking towards getting that game speed underneath them again to see if they can contribute.
When I look at the RedBlacks as well, they ran wild at the Stampeders the last time they played. However, that was the weather game. So we've referenced it a lot on the show. It's like, it was kind of an anomaly. But you think that the RedBlacks are going to want to try to get that running game going against the Stamps. Will they have a repeat performance? It's kind of interesting how they've handled that running game so far. Daniel Adeboboye, like his yards per carry average is pretty off the charts right now. Splitting carries with William Stanback at the moment. And we've talked about it on the show. I don't know how I feel about the whole designated American thing going to your starting running back, but Adeboboye, when he gets the ball, he's been taking advantage.
Oh, for sure. And I've said it so many times on here, like you have to establish a run game in the CFL if you want to be able to go downfield. And the last game being an anomaly or not, like they have to think that, just put it into your mental mindset that, hey, we ran all over these guys last game, so let's do it again. So I'm looking forward, hopefully, to seeing them do that. I do have Adeboboye in my lineup in fantasy, and these guys need to try everything to win, because they're one of the worst teams in the league right now, statistically and in the win column. So it's, I don't know really how they didn't make a change at coach in the bye week. I thought, that was the kind of time to do it, especially when you had another person with CFL head coaching experience who knows that team and that area well, to just could have been able to slide in there and kind of take over and maybe give a different kind of voice in the room. But they've kind of made their bed now, and so they have to start trying to be innovative and creative and do anything they can to get wins.
Man, there was talk, the BC Lions on bye right now. Some were wondering if there'd be some changes on the defense. They gave up it's almost 800 passing yards in the past 2 games in BC on bye right now. Some calling for Phillips to take the role again, but he fell out of favor as well last year. In BC, but I kind of like keeping the guy in the role and establish some of that continuity a little bit. But it is getting to desperate times for Ottawa, I would say. And now, if they are 1-6, man, if things keep going south and they don't have any playoff success this year, questions are going to start circling around probably GM Sean Burke and that whole regime. And do they start starting from scratch again? But I mean, they got talent on the roster. That's one of the things that I see. I do think that they put together a good roster. It's just it hasn't worked out so far for them. But I look at Daniel Adeboboye here, 7.2 yards a carry this season, 35 carries, 253 yards, also 14 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown. So anytime that he's getting the ball, he's making things happen for the RedBlacks. Good for him as they get prepared to host the Stampeders on Thursday Night Football. Then we are in Winnipeg, where the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are going to be without Zach Collaros against the Toronto Argonauts. He left at halftime last week at BMO Field, didn't return, not going to play this week. And here's the thing with the Bombers as well. Monday there was no practice. Tuesday's practice was canceled due to air quality. Wednesday's practice was a closed one. They still haven't committed to Chris Streveler as the starter for this week. I wonder if that's Mike O'Shea being Mike O'Shea, but tough to see another one of the league's quarterbacks, missing a game here.
Yeah, missing a game. We don't know if, he actually got injured again or if they're kind of just saying that to kind of save face. He didn't have a good first half, 2 interceptions. He certainly wasn't looking like the regular season Zach of old. It's been a struggle this year for the Bombers. They've had quite a big highs and look like they are kind of rolling on all cylinders and a team that looks to host the Grey Cup, but they've also looked terrible, and we just don't know what team we're going to get here. And we have it on our lineup sheet here. Still no touchdowns for Brady Oliveira. That's kind of been a big thing when he's your bread and butter, and especially when you're having issues with, your quarterback missing time for a suspension and now being injured. Guys like Brady Oliveira are the guys that need to kind of take over, and I know he's missed a couple games too, but he kind of did this last year too, though. He was slow to start when it came to the touchdowns, and then he just poured it on at the end of the year and still got MOP. So we'll have to see. Or no, didn't get MOP, MOC, right? Yeah. So we'll have to see how they're able to game plan, whether it is Chad Kelly, whether, they decide to, or not Chad Kelly, sorry, Chris Streveler, or if they decide to, pull a rabbit out of their hat. But I think it's Streveler. He's already won a game this season. I would say he's looked a little bit improved when it comes to the passing. But they need to, again, like Ottawa, it's a little bit different circumstance, but when you have Calgary and you have Saskatchewan kind of, winning at will, it seems, in the East or in the West, Winnipeg, if they don't look out, and if BC kind of is able to put some things together and not let wins slip away from them after the bye week, they could be looking at that crossover or worse.
Brady Oliveira was the MOP last year and the MOC.
Oh, right.
So he did end up with the awards. It was Bo against right. Brady, and Bo didn't get it.
I had a brain fart because it should have been Milligan versus Bo. That was my brain fart.
However, his first touchdowns of the year did not come until week 16 against Edmonton last year.
And that's pretty outstanding.
So he only had 3 rushing touchdowns on the year. 1 receiving touchdown. So last year, I think they wanted to give the MOP probably to somebody in the playoffs. I feel like
Milligan just wasn't good enough, I guess.
I guess. But I guess a lot of those touchdowns, when they're in close, they'll sneak them in with Chris Streveler, right? But
yeah, I know. Yeah.
Brady hasn't racked him up, and he doesn't have it yet. He's going to need a big game here, and the offense does run through him. And Chris Streveler started against BC in week 2. Zach Collaros was still serving that suspension at that time. He went 15 of 24 for 246 yards and 3 touchdowns. So Streveler did have a pretty good game in week 2 against the Argos. But I think obviously the turnovers on offense, that kind of thing. But the big problem right now with Winnipeg that's standing out to me is that defense. And last year, the secondary really came together. They were shutting out. Well, they literally shut out the Lions last year, and they were shutting down teams left and right. And then the last 3 or 4 weeks, that's gone. And I know Tyrell Ford's in Edmonton, but that secondary's not really doing too hot either. They're giving up the most passing yards. But Nick Arbuckle last week, 316 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. I mean, why not just keep throwing it up to DeMonte Coxie and see what happens for the double blue?
Yeah, and honestly, last week Winnipeg's tackling was terrible. I know it was a rainy, wet game, but Argo players were bouncing off of them and getting first downs when they shouldn't. So hopefully there's a little bit better weather and we can have a game where the elements aren't contributing too much. But yeah, Winnipeg's not the same team. That I think they're starting to actually get down to that average level where we kind of thought they were the past couple of years, and then they just decided to turn up the volume and get back to the Grey Cup. So, time will tell if they're able to do that here. But when they had a healthy Zach last year and we're still struggling, but turned it around. When you don't have a healthy Zach and you know you're missing some key players from last year, like you said, and Tyrell Ford. It's it's tough. It's a tough season for Winnipeg fans right now, and that's a shame. Real shame.
You just wanted to work that in there so hard.
It did.
You set yourself up for it. Now, the Bomber defense, they were still able to sack Arbuckle 5 times last week. But if they were able to get the ball up there, it seemed like everything was going Toronto's way. DeMonte Coxey, 6 catches, 145 yards. Devaris Daniels had himself his first touchdown of the season. David Ungerer III, 61 yards. And once the Argo offense, it's not spectacular, but it seemed like they were more confident with Deontay McMahon in there. And they had 21 carries between their running backs, Kalen Laburn and McMahon, last week. And that's where Toronto succeeded over the past, since Dinwiddie's been there, running the ball. So having 21 carries there was big for them. Now, Kalen Laburn, 13 carries for 50 yards. I love doing this. One of the carries was a 30-yard carry. So the other ones were 12 carries for 20 yards. But they still were trying to get that ball moving on the ground, and they didn't turn the ball over. And, hey, Janarian Grant with a 41-yard completion last week. Was he left-handed, if I remember correctly, too?
I can't remember.
Maybe not, but the left-handed QBs, they always throw me off. However, the Argos, they're going to be without Derek Sluka. And this dude, he's around the ball all the time. Return touchdowns, forcing fumbles, recovering fumbles. As a rookie, he's clearly got a nose to the football. And not having him for the Argos, that might be a bit of a loss for them. He's been fun to watch so far.
Oh, for sure. And whenever a player's not in there, you look for the other team to kind of target that backup and see if they're able to go. So it'll be interesting to see how that matchup goes, and just if the replacement is able to get even half of the statistical anomalies that this Sluka kid has got this year as a rookie, the Argos might be in for still a good night.
However, Stanley Bryant remains out for the Bombers, the longtime left tackle for the Bombers. And receiver Cody Case, he's out as well. He's been on the roster last week. I know some Bomber fans kind of wondering, hey, we brought in Dylan Mitchell, who's had success with Edmonton in the past. He hasn't seen the field. Maybe he is going to be seeing the field here in week 9. But this is certainly an interesting matchup. Because, Tyler Chatfield on the Argos, he's still making, QBs pay. And without Stanley Bryant there, who Strevler did have for week 2 in that win against BC, that still is a lot of leadership and a lot of experience not on the field for Winnipeg. So I think they're going to want to try to get Brady going, but it seems like the past few weeks they've lost by double digits. They had success running the ball, but they just fell behind, and it just got to a point where, well, if we're going to give it to him, we can't do it on a consistent basis as much as they'd like. So I think they're going to want to get Brady going early, try to get a few 8-minute drives in there, get out of Princess Auto as fast as they can, but also get Nick Dembski going. He had a pretty quiet week last week, and if they can get him going again, but the injuries in the receiving core and on the O-line and at QB now, it seems to be adding up for the Bombers.
Yeah, injuries are becoming a concern for most teams. Early on it seemed like some teams were kind of bit by that bug a little bit more than others, but it does seem to kind of be balancing out around the league. And, we hate to see that because we want to see these guys play, but it's just a great way to see what these GMs and coaches are doing with their teams and seeing if they are able to plug and play some of these new up-and-comers, and maybe we could find some new stars to kind of take over in the next couple of years too.
Okay, Saturday. It is a long weekend, so it looks like maybe they wanted to have a doubleheader on Saturday. That's what we're doing here. The Hamilton Tiger Cats are 3.5-point favorites in Edmonton, where the over-under is at 54.5. The Ticats coming to this one hot. They've won 5 in a row. Probably exactly what the Elks don't need right now.
Yeah, the Elks, they need a win. They need a win badly, and I'm not sure, this is the right formula for that because especially Hamilton just coming off of winning in BC the way they did, despite of, crazy interceptions and just, the yo-yo of that score, and just, Hamilton just seems like a team that you try to shut down a guy like Kenny Lawler, and they're just going to throw it to Tim White, and right, like they're a very good team right now, and best team in the East, possibly best team in the league right now. I saw a lot of power rankings having the Riders still as number one. I just don't see how you can do that with the Stamps winning 5 in a row and the Riders, not really having decisive wins, letting teams come back and stuff like that. So I'd say right now Hamilton's the best team in the league, and it just could be a rough night in Commonwealth for those fans there. But maybe I'll be wrong.
I've had Elks season tickets since 2015, and I have recent memory of the Ticats coming to Edmonton and having some success. So that's not saying much. Many teams come there and have had success lately. But last year, the Ticats came to Commonwealth. They won 44-28. In 23, they won 37-29. So they seem to be having lots of success in Edmonton for some reason. They just show up and they light it up, and that's that's Ticats football right now. And just what we've seen from that Elk secondary, giving up 425 yards of net offense, 319 passing yards a game. This does seem like the formula, like last week was the formula of a good shootout between BC and Hamilton. We got that. This seems like the formula of a pretty good night for the Ticats offense in Hamilton as well.
Yeah.
Or Edmonton.
Like we said, they just have such amazing receivers. And right now, Bo Levi, if given time, he's been kind of surgical. And, we'll see if this works again, Corey. I don't know. You're getting a shout out. I don't know if this is going to keep you going or not, but I certainly want Western teams to lose, so I'll give you a shout out this week. But Hamilton has just been so fun to watch. They're having fun. Bo's, Beacon, Luke Wilson, and other quarterbacks on the sidelines. He's pointing to that ice in his veins all the time. This is the Bo Levi that, as an early CFL fan, I could not stand. And it's actually just really great seeing him again when I actually like him, because he's just so fun to watch. And Kenny Lawler, he had an off game. I wouldn't say off game, but he was just he chance that much last week, and he's going to want to get another couple touchdowns so he can keep the pace on trying to get that record over Milt Stiegel. So he's definitely got, and he also might have a little bit of an axe to grind with Edmonton. He played there, it didn't work out for him, and now he's kind of moved on. I know he went back to Winnipeg and now to Hamilton, but I'm sure he'd like to show up and have a great night to just kind of show those fans what they should have gotten back then.
Man, I'm just digging back in history here. In 2021, the Ticats beat the Elks 39-23. In 2019, the Ticats beat Edmonton 30-27 at Commonwealth Stadium. This is crazy. 2018, the Ticats beat Edmonton 38-21 at Commonwealth Stadium.
But everyone was beating the Elks there those days.
It hasn't been since 2017. The Elks actually lost in the West Final that year. That they beat the Ticats at Commonwealth Stadium. So I don't know. They have success there for some strange reason, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just living dangerously. I want to put it all on Black. I kind of want to put it all on Edmonton right now. The Ticats, the Sunday night game in Vancouver, they traveled back to Hamilton, back to Edmonton. A lot of travel. And the Elks offense, Cody Fajardo said they started feeling more comfortable in the fourth quarter against the Riders. They put up 14 points in the fourth quarter. However, another offensive line performance like that, they will not win. I would say that Saskatchewan's defensive line is stronger than Hamilton's. I don't think that is a controversial statement. So the Elks need to get the running game going. I don't even really care what the excuse is here. Just get it going. Get Rankin rolling. Get Leak rolling. I don't care. Put Trey Ford in there. Have a package for him to move the ball. That's what they have to do. If they are going to have any success against Hamilton, they need to keep the offense off the field, because there have been long stretches this year when their defense hasn't been able to get off the field and their offense couldn't stay on. And then it's like Indiana Jones, the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. The ball gets rolling and they just can't stop it. So I think the Elks D-line, I think they're solid. They can stop the run. They haven't had as much success getting to the quarterback as they would have liked. Bo gets rid of it really fast, so that is a challenge. The secondary, I don't know. Do you just hope that they make mistakes? Because BC, they did okay shutting down Lawler, but that's all they shut down. Edmonton secondary at times, they give up some big plays, and the Ticats have a lot of weapons at their disposal.
They do. So yeah, it'll be, just interesting to see how they decide to combat that. JC Sherrod is a first-time defensive coordinator, so he's gonna have a tough task ahead of him. I do just want to switch over back to the offense though, because Cody Fajardo, I listened to his post game after the Rider game, and I was kind of expecting to hear the Cody that I heard in Saskatchewan after a tough game where he got sacked a bunch and, not really taking accountability and not, just I didn't really like the way that he handled the media here in Saskatchewan, but I have to say that he did a really good job. He took the blame for most of everything. He said that even on the bench, he looked at some of on the iPad and saw some of the times where they were running RPO that he shouldn't have pulled the ball and he should have just let it go and handed off. And so I'm interested to see if now that he kind of realizes that he's the starter, because Killam said after the game that Cody's a starter now. So now that he knows he's the guy, and it seems to me that he's matured, and maybe winning that Grey Cup is what it took, or just being with Jason Moss away from Craig Dickinson. I'm not sure what it was, but it does seem like Cody has grown when it comes to that sort of part of his game. So let's see if he's able to translate the mistakes he realizes immediately after defeat, and see if he can take that and put it into motion next week against, arguably I'd say an even opponent when it comes to overall everything.
Now, the Elks they're going through some injury issues of themselves right now. Linebacker Nick Anderson, rookie of the year last year for the Elks, 111 tackles last year, 3 sacks, 1 interception, 2 forced fumbles. He didn't practice on Wednesday, dealing with a groin issue, or hasn't practiced Tuesday either. The big receiver, Zach Mathis, he went down after a big catch last week against Saskatchewan. He hasn't been at practice. And Royce Metier hasn't practiced, dealing with the ankle issue as well. So some, players that they need to contribute on either side of the ball might be missing this game against the Ticats. So we'll see how the Elks really do here. Their thing is, can Cody Fajardo string some drives together and start to build some confidence with that team? However, the other teams in the CFL, they get paid too. They don't feel bad. It's not a charity case. It doesn't matter if you're 1-5 or whatever it is. Those Ticats are tied with the Alouettes in the standings, and they do want to continue to stay at the top. And it's been a while, I think, since we've seen an East final in Hamilton, and they're gonna be hungry and they're gonna fight for that one all the way. The Elks, on the other hand, man, 1-5. And it's desperation time once again. It just kind of feels like deja vu for the Edmonton Elks. The final game of the week is in Montreal, where the Riders are in town as 2.5-point favorites. The over-under at 49.5 here. These two teams very evenly matched, and the games in Montreal, they always seem to be quite interesting between these two squads, whether it's games cut short by weather or whatever the heck else seems to happen here. Yeah. This promises to be a good one to wrap up week 9, I think.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what to think. I think that I didn't think the Riders were going to be able to win in BC. They actually went out and played a very solid game. And then I kind of thought that they might fall to a trap game of Edmonton at home. And then they, other than letting them get back into it, they did a pretty good job once, in the middle quarters, I guess I'll say. And yeah, I just, McLeod Bethel Thompson hasn't looked like the same guy. We thought he was going to be a good insurance policy, but Montreal's also missing, a lot of receivers, and so I think objectively looking at this, the Riders should win, but going all the way to Montreal is tough, and yeah, it seemed like for a long time they would never win there, and then it seemed like for a long time they would win all the time there, and it's just you never kind of know what's going on, and we have. Sean Lemon, who's most likely going to make his debut this season, and we'll have to see if he's going to be rotational or if he's going to be in there, a second downs. He's going to have a bunch of rust. He's going to have to knock off himself, missing, a full season and a half almost. So lots of kind of storylines in this game, and I just don't know.
I am intrigued to see how that Rider offense does against the Alouette defense. The Rider offense is second in the CFL right now in average yards per game, a shade under 400 yards, 395 yards a game. But the Alouette defense is best in the CFL as far as yardage goes, 321 yards against a game, and they're second best in points against the game as well at 20.7. So the Rider offense and Trevor Harris, who seems at times this year he's playing really, really good football. They're going to have quite the test here at Percival Molson.
They will. Norththorpe always makes it, interesting. He likes to disguise a lot of stuff and throw different things. But I think one thing that works in the Riders' favor is Trevor Harris knows that defense. He's been around it a couple times, so I think he knows what to do to kind of exploit that a little bit. We saw last year when the Riders went in there, they had you know had a chance to come in and either tie or win the game. I'm not sure, but they had picked and catch the ball on the stepping out of bounds or whatever it was. I can't quite remember if that's exactly what it was, but I like the stats say, I think this is going to be a really close game. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. It's just going to depend on which team is ready to go and which teams, players who are subbing in for those injuries, who's going to be able to make the biggest impacts.
Trevor Harris does have 5 touchdown passes against 1 interception in his past 2 games. So we'll see if he'll be able to keep up that scoring pace here against the Alouettes. Looks like they're still going to be without Samuel Emilus. And from my eyes, it seems like that offense just seems to operate a little bit better, a little bit differently when he's in there. But could Sean Bain Jr. be making his season debut for the Riders, practicing in full again this week?
Yeah, practicing in full, and he says he's ready to go. Sean Bain, Sam Emilus is a Canadian, so he's coming out, and it looks like Tommy Neal is going to get the start there to make his season debut as a starter. I know he dressed last week. It's tough. Like when you have players like Keyshawn Johnson and Deontay Myers and even Joe Robustelli, the emergence of him, like how can you kind of take a guy like him out? I know Sean Bain is Sean Bain, and he's itching to get back in there, and I don't necessarily think he should lose a job due to injury, but sometimes you kind of have to wait until another injury or something happens to get back in there. Honestly, if I was the Riders, and I got a little bit of flack on this online, but I would, we had McRae come in last week to cover the returns and struggled. He let a couple off his hands. I know one was a no yards penalty, and so, but still, you got to secure the ball. And if Alfred's not ready to go again, maybe put Sean Bain on as a returner and let him get his legs under him a little bit and get back to CFL action, and see if he can help the team in that, because he's a dynamic runner. When he gets that ball in open space, he can go. So if I was Corey Mace, I would put Sean Bain in as a returner for a couple games, and then you kind of wait and see. And if you have him in the roster, then you can sub him in as a receiver, and you can slowly build it back into this offense. And if worse comes to worse and you still have some injuries when it comes to the Canadian spots, then maybe you make him one of those designated nationals or designated Americans or whatever those rules work, so you can have him take some of the Canadian offensive snaps. That's just me, though.
Sean Bain did have 25 punt returns in 2 seasons with the Calgary Stampeders before coming to Saskatchewan. He had about a double-digit average on punt returns, which is pretty solid. And then over 2 years, he had 14 kick returns with Calgary as well, with a 21-yard average on returns. So it's not something that he hasn't done before, but I'd say that would be a pretty good way to utilize him and have him on to the roster. The Alouettes are dealing with injury issues right now as well, and that's not even talking about quarterback Davis Alexander. Some other heavy hitters that have contributed to that team over the past few years. That's Canadian receiver Tyson Philpott, still dealing with a hamstring issue. Austin Mack dealing with an ankle issue, hasn't practiced this week, as well as James Letcher Jr., the electric returner, dealing with a hand injury. So I feel like those 3 guys aren't going to be playing, this maybe evens the playing field a little bit, and the Riders, they come into this one having a bit of an advantage. However, McLeod Bethel Thompson, every week he's going to get more comfortable in the Jason Moss offense, and the Riders are giving up the most passing yards on average a week, which is wild. Say what you want about McLeod Bethel-Thompson. I do think he is a quarterback that will be able to pick apart a zone, especially if they're able to protect him. If the Rider defense is able to pressure like they did against Edmonton last week, McLeod's going to have a long day. But if he does have some time in the pocket, they might be able to chuck up some yards there and keep this game pretty close.
Yeah, it seems like in the past few games that maybe Corey Mace has heard some of the outside noise when it comes to just how much he's been using that zone, because he has been blitzing a lot more. And it's not a lot. Like he's still putting them in zone quite a bit, but I think sprinkling in those blitzes and just keeping the other offenses honest when it comes to, when they're gonna, how often they're gonna expect just to pick apart a zone like they have. And this is kind of my problem with the last couple of games when the Riders kind of got out to big double-digit leads. It's kind of like they just slid right back into that soft zone defense and they stopped pressuring as much. I know they got 8 sacks against the Elks last week, and that was unreal. Like, I gotta say, that was the best that stadium has felt when it comes to an atmosphere in a long time. Like since probably the Brett Lowther walk-off Labor Day game. Like it was amazing in there. Wow. There was lots of people. It was great. And so if the Riders are able to keep winning, and hopefully we can kind of get back to that in Regina. But yeah, I just if McLeod Bethel-Thompson has time and he's able to stand there, he will pick apart the team. It just is this defense going to be able to not break if they let it bend so much? Because so far they've been, outside of one game, I'd say they've been pretty good at that. And until, garbage time, they've been letting in a lot more. So we'll see. I'd like to see 4 quarters from the Riders before I can really start to believe that they are legit and not just, kind of lucking into this first place position right now.
The Riders are 6-1. They're 3-0 on the road. The Alouettes 5-2. They are 2-1 at home at the moment. Another situation will be watched. These are 2 of the best run defenses in the CFL as far as yards go. The Alouettes will be bringing Sean Thomas Erlington and probably Travis Tice to the table, and the Riders are going to be bringing AJ Ouellette to the table. The Alouettes giving up the least amount of yards a game or play on first down, best in the CFL, 5.9. So if the Riders want to win this game, they're going to need to probably convert some tough second downs, and that's not always good or easy to do against this Noel Thorpe coached team. All right, Sheldon, let's deal with your power rankings right now before we get to the fantasy lineups and stuff like that. So what are yours looking like?
Okay, so this week, here's my power rankings. Hamilton, Saskatchewan, Calgary, Montreal, Winnipeg, Toronto, what am I doing? Edmonton and Ottawa. What? I screwed that all up. I hope that's right. I was just oof. That's what I said to you, and it has a bunch of mistakes, so I hope you were able to figure that
out. We'll go with that. What you read is what we're going with. I think what matters is who's on top right now. And
Hamilton's definitely on top. They should be. The first couple of games when they started the streak, I don't think they were expected to get those wins, and they've just been on fire. And Saskatchewan I wouldn't say they're on fire. They're just, kind of there and performing, but also not shutting other teams out. So that's kind of the reason I have that.
Okay, we'll get to our fantasy lineups right away here. I'm going to pull up the CFL Podcast Fantasy League. Last week, I had another loss. I'm 2-6. Like, I'm Edmonton Elks territory here, man. I wasn't even in the league last year, and I'm thinking of quitting again. You were 3-5, so you're.
And I was 3-0 at one point.
Oh, you were 5 in a loss, 5-0.
Either 2-1 or 3-0. I can't remember. Yeah, it's been a slide. It's not been great.
Okay, this week I'm going up against Ben Grant from X's and Argos, and you have Greg from the Piffles podcast. All right.
Yeah, I already congratulated on his upcoming win. So.
Okay, my lineup has Bo Levi Mitchell as my quarterback and my captain. Deontay McMahon and Justin Rankin are my running backs. My receivers are Tim White, DeMonte Coxey, Keyshawn Johnson of the Riders. And my defense, the Ottawa RedBlacks, taking on PJ Walker's Calgary Stampeders. Who's your lineup, Sheldon?
I also have Bo Levi Mitchell as my captain. My running backs are Brady Oliveira and Daniel Adebaboye. Receivers, I have Tim White, DeMonte Coxey, and Joe Robustelli. And just because they're the cheapest, and I was trying to get some other points elsewhere, the Edmonton Elks defense against my quarterback for some reason.
Taking your defense against your quarterback, that's a bold strategy, Cotton. That's a bold strategy.
Yep. I like to live dangerously.
Hey, I like that. Week 9 of the 2025 CFL season is upon us. The Ottawa RedBlacks, 3.5-point favorites at home against the Calgary Stampeders without Vernon Adams Jr. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, 3-point favorites at home against the Argos Bombers without Zach Collaros. The Elks, 3.5-point underdogs at home against the Ticats. And the Alouettes, 2.5-point underdogs at home against the Riders. I am taking the RedBlacks, the Argos, the Ticats, the Alouettes. Sheldon, who do you got?
I'm taking the RedBlacks, the Argos, the Ticats, and the Riders, but I will say this has been the toughest week, I think, when it comes to pick'em, because I have no idea. I'm going to go either 4-0 or 0-4. I'm not sure.
Let us know in the comments who you are going to be taking for Pick'em this week. But there we are. Week 9 already of the CFL season. It felt like it just started, but we're almost halfway through the season, which is kind of sad. But it's also exciting because Labor Day is right around the corner. And the August long weekend is here, so be safe, be cool, be dry, have fun this long weekend. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Two and Out on your favorite podcatcher and on YouTube as well. We will talk to you soon on the Two and Out CFL Podcast.
The Two and Out CFL Podcast is written, produced, and hosted by Travis Currah and co-hosted by Sheldon Jones. Subscribe to Two and Out on all major podcast platforms and YouTube to keep up to date with future shows.